What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS. Have you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die? And can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They call us channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability?
My name is Esther Gates, and I'm a channel, an Akashic record reader, and a medium. And I love serving humanity in this way. I've been doing it for 4 years. I've been doing a lot of studying and self-work, soul work, so to speak, to be the best channel and Akashic record reader and medium that I can be. I live in Indiana, in southern Indiana, and I've been there 20 years. And I'm married and I have 3 kids. And I love what I do. So thank you for having me on.
It is great to have you on. We have got a lot to talk about here, right? And there's going to be a lot to cover. I think what I'm going to do to begin with is just go a little bit way back here. Let's just start the journey off in a sense for people. And this is also to encourage anyone else out there as well who is teetering on the edge a little bit of not being too sure whether to do this or just to be inspired by this interview in the sense, because you've not been doing this too long. And, you know, I'm very gracious to have you here. And yeah, this was going to help a lot of people. So let's just go back to when you were younger. I think you were, you were a very sensitive person, and I think most people a majority of people that come out to do this type of work do have that very sensitive side as well. So just tell us a little bit about growing up and what it was like to not really understand the energy that you had, but to when you look back now, you can see the bigger picture.
Yes, yes, I was very sensitive to energy around me. I can even remember I grew up in Virginia, and we went on field trips to places, battlefields, and I would get off the bus and I'd be so excited and I'd feel miserable. I'd get out there and suddenly it was all I could think of was something really bad happened here, and I just wanted to leave. And so even as a kid, I could sense when things weren't good, And so yes, I was absolutely very sensitive to energy. I didn't understand what all was going on all the time, but I would definitely know when something bad was happening around me, or when I was in a place where something was affecting me. Yes.
Do you think that's the case that you look back now and you can make sense of what was happening at the time, but previously maybe you just kind of wrote it off, but now that you've gone down this road, when you sort of memories come back or however that takes place, you reflect on it and you see it completely differently?
Absolutely. I was so sensitive. Even I didn't really like scary movies. I didn't really like Halloween. Everything scared me. I was so sensitive to all that stuff, and the other kids thought a lot of things were fun like that. And I just couldn't. I think I sensed more than they did in the energy, and it would just overwhelm me.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people that, that there's, even in their sort of, later years, they're still quite a sensitive person as well. Maybe you have to be for this work. Perhaps you do. Or perhaps it just brings that side out more for people. So, pretty normal, teenage years, pretty normal life in a sense. I mean, as far as I know, I believe he was working as a pharmacy technician. But I mean, those years leading up to that, everything was pretty normal. I mean, were you looking into these subjects at all?
No, my family was religious. My mother was a very religious person, and we were taught that those things were off limits, that there were demons and things that you shouldn't speak to, spirits. We were taught a lot of different things in our religion that shut down that energy for me and put it in a very negative light. So I think that's one of the reasons as a child, whenever I felt energy, I assumed it was negative. And there were times when it was, but there may have been times when it wasn't. And I still would shut down because I was taught not to engage. So for a lot of my years, I did not honor that energy at all. It took me a long time and bouts of depression and resisting, because I really didn't understand it and didn't want to be part of it. I really thought that it was wrong. So, that was the path that I came from, was a very strict religious belief, that not to look into those things.
So, at the latter years, then, has other members of the family, are they sort of less into the strictness of the religion, but and more open to other subjects, to other paths in a sense, but that there's still that underlying Christian belief there?
Absolutely. My aunt, when my mother passed, she was very young when she passed. And the first indication that I had that things were different than what I was told was when my aunt saw my mother after she passed. She said, I saw her. She came to me in my bedroom and she said, everything's okay. She appeared to me. And my aunt was, pretty grounded person. And she would never say something like that just to say it. So that was the first indication to me that things were a little different. And then my mom had passed. And as I got older, I started to formulate my own beliefs. I wasn't part of that religion necessarily anymore. And so I allowed myself to explore. So did my sister. And she's the one that opened up even before me, I believe.
Did she? Right. Okay. Well, we're going to get into a little bit about that, I suppose, as well, more into the story. So it was your sister that got onto that type of alternative path. I'll call it that just for now, right? And then obviously from there, I suppose that was your support in a sense. So okay, so there was the depression there. There was lots of things that you were finding in a sense. So you're married, you've got kids, you're a pharmacy technician, and then around sometime in the I want to say mid 2000s, and correct me if I'm wrong, you had a car crash, and that car crash changed everything for you.
In 2015, I had an accident, and I don't remember really what happened, but I ran off the road in wet weather and went across an embankment. It was pretty serious. I went down a very steep embankment on a windy road and ended up crossing another street and hitting a tree. I totaled my car. It was completely totaled. I was very fortunate. I had a very bad swollen face and all from hitting the steering wheel, the bag that popped out. I didn't break my jaw. I ground down some teeth. I had to have a bunch of dental work done on this side, and I had some plastic surgery to correct a gash that I had in my face. But fortunately, I was okay. And I started questioning everything at that point. What happens when you die? Why did this happen? Is this all there is? There were so many things that I started questioning. I was pretty angry. My husband had just gotten over cancer. He had survived stage 4. And, I had things to be thankful for, but I still thought, wow, why is this happening? We're good people, right? What is the purpose of coming here and being good and doing what's right by your children and your family, and doing a good job at your work and appreciating it, when things keep happening to you and then you die and you're gone. I was really disgusted with what I saw. I was just like, this isn't making sense to me. And so I started opening up and asking a lot of questions and looking for answers. And it took me a while to really pull myself together. I did suffer some depression. I would come home and be exhausted and just want to go to bed. And I'm glad in this stage my kids were older. They didn't need me, right? So I could allow myself a little bit of room to follow this depression period that I had. And I had felt that before, but I was always there was always a reason. Money was tight. We were working really hard, stress. But at this point in my life, after this accident, my kids were grown. Everyone was doing very well. Our financial situation had completely stabilized, yet I was still not happy. I was still depressed. I'm like, what is going on? Why is this gripping me, off and on? It just didn't feel good. So I started searching. I did start looking into things. One of the things I noticed was my husband was watching a fishing show. And on there, it was monster fish. I don't know if you've ever seen it on cable, but these guys had gone into China in the steppe region, which I think that area of the world is fascinating. And that's why I watched it. They were in the steppe region of China, very remote to a tribe. And they couldn't find this rare fish that they were looking for. So a shaman woman came. The mother brought her, the young woman. She dressed in ancient looking garb and did a ceremony and spoke. And when she spoke, her voice did not sound like hers. And the mother translated, and they were asked to not harm the fish if they were shown where it was. The men never questioned it, Kevin. I thought that was odd. They never questioned it. There was no disclaimer, no fear. They just honored the whole process, did where they were told to go, found it, left it alone, just took pictures and let it free. And so that was really struck me. So I started looking into this depression stuff and was listening to TED Talks. Yeah. And I was listening to people who were top performers in their field having troubles like this, the same ones I were having, the same feelings, right? And they were talking about follow your fear. Don't ignore it. Your body's trying to tell you something. And I thought that's interesting because you're always told to just push through it, right? You're always told here, take this medication, push through it, up, go exercise, just get more rest. You're just stressed or whatever. It'll pass, just kind of push through it or ignore depression. Or it's stigmatized in your family and you can't say anything because they think you're lost your mind. So there's a couple scenarios that can play out. There's some shame there, oh, you're weak, or whatever, overly sensitive. So what I did was I was laying there in my bed and I'm doing all this research on this, looking at this, thinking about that shaman woman, looking at this depression issue. And I looked up some more stuff and I decided, well, while I'm figuring out my fear here of my depression, I'll look at this thing about the shaman women and the step reason. And I looked up Phil Borges, Borges, Borges. He's a documentary filmmaker who documented shamanism all over the world. And he documented that in every culture, there were people that had these abilities that could read and tell fortunes, talk to spirit and give information. And one of the aspects that he went in at, one of the angles is how did they handle mental illness in these tribes? And that was my link to it, really, because they looked at it differently. There wasn't shame. There wasn't ignoring it. It'll go away, or shoving it down, or think about something else. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. None of that. There was full support. And he showed how the shamans would take these children or adults that were having these feeling of overwhelmedness or sensitivities and tell them that this could be a gift. This sensitivity, the reason that you're feeling overwhelmed could be a gift. And a lot of these people ended up being the shamans after this shaman left because they were being brought forward because this one or two children or person was having issues. They were being talked to and asked to step in, and they were going to be going into training into shamanism. But it started with headaches, feeling dizzy, feeling overwhelmed, not understanding things in their environment, right? So I was shocked at that. I thought, that's amazing, right? And so I told my sister, and that's when she said, did you read the book I gave you? And I said, I don't know, I don't remember. So she said, you gave it back to me. Here it is. It was Seth Speaks. I think it's The Validity of the Human Soul, I believe Seth Speaks. And that's when I saw Jane Roberts. I looked her up to see who she was and found film video of her channeling. And that's when I started having a lot of things come to me. I was having trouble sleeping. I started meditations. I started self-hypnosis meditations for anxiety and sleep. Just things I found on YouTube where I liked the sound of someone's voice and what they were saying. So there was no particular spirituality about it. It was learning to feel better, learning to let go of the anxiety. I was really trying to improve my depression, get rid of it, get out of that, and to understand it better. But at the same time, I was looking into her, and watching her and listening to Seth. There was amazing information coming there. And that's when I guess a couple of weeks had gone by. You have to listen to her very closely because she speaks with a heavy accent when she channels. Her voice changes. And, you got to really listen. So I was really listening, and I sneezed. And at the same time I sneezed, I believe someone in the class sneezed. And that's when Seth came in and said, yes, I'm talking to you, the one that sneezed. And that's when everything in my body, I got the chills, and the hair stood up, and I realized maybe he can see me or hear me. He knows I'm listening. He talks about there not being time or space like we understand it here. And that was a beautiful moment. And my frequency started rising, and I started having a lot of experiences then.
Okay, so that was a big part of the coming into, I suppose, coming into a place of, is it happiness? Is it acceptance? I mean, what was it for you at that point? I suppose, was it just you were, how would you describe your alignment into where you was going at, from where you were to what you was becoming? that question makes sense.
First, I guess I was really happy to know that we're in control of our reality. That's what I got from Seth. He says the reason you have fear is because you're not sure of your position here. You're not secure in who you are. But once you know who you are, then that fear goes away. And that amount of understanding really appealed to me because I didn't have to be interested in other people. I got to focus on myself and improving myself. And that energy, the way he spoke, the encouragement that we have more than one life and there's a lot of information there. I don't know, it was just very peaceful to me. It left me feeling freeing, very freeing, actually. I guess is the word, not boxed in by some very narrow belief of who we are and why we're here. That never suited me.
So did you get more into going to other events, reading books on this subject, or consuming more videos in this subject? What was your journey? What was the path then?
Well, after Seth, I realized that he was in the 70s and that Jane had actually passed away. So what I did was I was listening to different videos in my car. I was trying to find who was channeling now. And that's when I came across your show. And you were talking about, yeah, you were talking about how to tell really, really good channels that from maybe ones that weren't in integrity. You had some excellent videos and interviews with people that really resonated with you. And you mentioned Lee Carroll channels Cryon, and you mentioned Esther Hicks channeling Abraham. And so when I went home that night, I looked those people up. And it was amazing. I really enjoyed both of their messages. I really resonated with Cryon. I think I started listening to him all the time, lunch breaks, when I go to bed at night. Yeah, a lot of information. He's been doing this a long time, and he's very well respected in his field. And he's written books, and he had answers to a lot of questions that I had too. And so I just delve into him, and then from him, through listening to him, I started listening to the people that he brought on stage with him in many of his gatherings that were equally as good. Marilyn Harper channeling Adironda, Prageet Harris, and Julie and Conrad channeling Alcazar. And those people gave me so much information, very solid, and it all was in agreement with each other. There was nothing in controversy. It all blended well together. And as I listened to these things and I had these experiences, I got a message one day when I was doing dishes that one of my brother-in-law's father wanted to give him a message. And that was the first time someone who had transitioned to had passed away, so had come in to talk to me. I was really caught off guard. So I called my sister, and this is not her first husband. I didn't know him that well. And I never had met his father. So I had to ask her permission first if he would be okay for me to give him this message, and to see where he was at on that. And he said fine, and he's been wonderful. I gave him the message. I gave him a couple of different messages, and he really appreciated it. And I asked Spirit, how many are there? What's going on? And I could see lines of people. It looked like, but they were all faded into each other. I don't know how to explain it. Just an endless line wanting to talk through me. And I thought, that's interesting. So I started really getting into channeling and taking it seriously and looking into how to be responsible with this energy, how to get some training, how to handle what's coming at me and make sure that I'm accurate. And there was many times I thought, I'm imagining this is not, and things would happen and it would be obvious it was real. I would know things that people didn't know. They would come forward and say, she told me information that nobody else knew. It was just like, okay, I'm all right. I started getting messages through numbers on, I don't know if you ever had double digits pop up, but I would ask for confirmation and I would get 1111 on the clock. I would get 1010. I asked for confirmation. Marilyn Harper started a course, Chandler's Academy. It's a year-long program, a real commitment. And she matches you up with partners and you practice with people, you practice intensely. And I was wondering if I should take this course, and she had mentioned before that when I had listened to her that when she was learning to channel, she would see a feather for confirmation, right? Something, right? It always showed up, a feather. Well, I have chickens in my backyard. I have two. I live in Indiana. Well, so I wasn't looking for a feather in my yard. I knew that was probably going to be, there was always going to be a feather out there, right? So I didn't trust that. So I was out there in my yard thinking about this course. I really want to channel. I'm drawn to it. It's all I think about. Looked up in the sky and there was a cloud in the perfect shape of a feather. I mean, the perfect shape of a feather floored me. I was like, oh my goodness, you are real. You hear me. And, many times I'd be brought to tears because I knew I would get such good confirmation. I wasn't imagining this. It was real. And they had to keep ensuring me of that because it was new to me and it was fast. And I wasn't sure, I had to make sure that I was in the right place. So for the past 4 years, I've been in training. I've been decompressing from all the trauma in my life and all the, I would say, programming, that religious programming. I had to let that go. I had to let go of a lot of fears that I had to do this work. I had to really be in a good place myself before I could help other people. And that was also a clear message. I couldn't just jump in and start doing this. I could do some free stuff. I could explain to people where I'm at, but I had to really be a clear channel. I had to unload my baggage, so to speak. I had to do that inner child work. That's where the Stargate came in with Prageet Harris. They offer courses where you can do meditations that are targeted to bringing in the inner child. And you talk to that child and ask it, different questions. It helps you remember what you went through and felt like as a child. You remember certain things that maybe traumatized you, and you can learn to let that go. And I did a lot of that work. I had past life trauma. I did an American Indian 6-week course to let go of ancestral trauma, where she worked with me and it was online. And I was meditating with her as she was talking, and an Indian in full dress came to me in my mind's eye and said, Gemma is her name. And he said, Gemma sent me. Is it all right if I work with you? And I said, yes. So every time I became fearful during this ancestral group that would come together, he would step in front of me and make sure that I was okay. And I just thought that was fascinating. I've had some great experiences. There was times when my frequency went up so high, I could see without my glasses, amazing. I've experienced some really solid things that make me know that I'm on the right track, that this is real and that this is happening and that I can be a clear channel. I can be accurate, but it's a life's work. You have to maintain yourself. You have to pay attention. So that's also a commitment and a process that I'm willing to do because I love this work so much. And I enjoy every time I raise my frequency from clearing out baggage, I just feel better. My life starts going in better and better. That's all I can say is it makes your life better.
Yeah, you've done a lot of work on yourself. So when you do the medium readings or the mediumship readings, How is that different to the channeled readings? I mean, because obviously you mentioned there the first time you got a message or you feel you had some sort of download. How does it come to you in a sense? And how is it different from the channeling that you do?
It's actually very similar. It's a different frequency, sort of like a radio station. So you tune in to the frequency of the person that has passed. The person that wants you to do the mediumship, they tell you who it is that they want you to contact. They explain to you, well, at least for me, I like an explanation of what happened or when, is this, a relative, a friend? And they explain to me, that they're having a hard time with it, So I contact and ask for the higher self of the person who passed. And I go with love and appreciation for them and their journey, and for the one that is asking for the healing, is the way I consider it. It's through the heart. And that I have never had anything negative happen. I've had all positive. Now people have been brought to tears. They've had closure, did it hurt? How long did it take? Do you remember, what I said? A lot of times I'll answer those questions before they even ask them. And they'll say, okay, well, that was one of my questions, okay, that was one, I'll go ahead and fill in that immediately from that person that's transitioned, because to me, that part of it is confirmation that we go on. So when it's your turn, that it's not the end of it. You go on. So that kind of takes that fear of death away. It can, if you let it. And also that person has gone on. It's not the end of them. You're going to see them again. They're going to watch over you. They're going to be with you anytime you want to talk to them. They're in your field of energy. And I don't understand how everything works. I can be honest. I'm still learning. We all have our perspective on how things work, and we learn as the years go on. But
Absolutely,
yeah.
we do. So, with the mediumship side, is it you just you hear it's a download, or it's and just a knowing? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah. Well, it's a knowing, it's a hearing, and they show me pictures. Yeah, I will have someone say, can you show me something that we used to do together? Or I had a dad that was really kind of skeptical. He was like, I don't know if you're really talking to my son. And he says, can you show me something? And I said, well, he is showing me a picture of a lawnmower, a riding lawnmower. I said, does that mean anything to you? I said, this big riding mower. And he says, yes. I did not know this man. Apparently he had a big piece of property, and his son was the one that mowed with the tractor. He's the one and his son loved doing it. He loved learning how to ride that tractor. Apparently it was a big deal for them. So the son was showing me this big riding mower, and then the dad felt better, it was like, oh, okay, because that was something that I had no idea. So things like that, they show me pictures, and they'll say, I didn't do it on purpose, an accident will happen. Did they mean to, and I can confirm. And some of them did do it on purpose. You don't always get the answer you expect. And that's another thing I've learned, how to navigate that. Some difficult situations when people ask me questions.
Well,
it's
yeah,
not always
it's trusting,
perfect.
isn't it? It's trusting it as well, isn't it? Trusting what's coming through. And that takes a lot of bravery, I think, to be honest with you, to put yourself out there, to trust what's coming through, and add for it to be received as well, and what people, the person that's getting the reading is going to think. But it sounds like to me that you've got the three clairs there: clair sentient, clair audio, and clair visual, in a sense. So that's interesting. I guess you always had that, probably, but as you've gone on your path, it's just blossomed, in a sense. So we're going to get into what you do with your services online. Your website is
EstherGates.com.
Okay. Well, all the links I've put below for this show in the description. Just go to the show more just below, and you'll see everything that we're going to be discussing and what we have discussed as well, and your links to Facebook and other platforms that you're on. So let's just go back to the channeling then. You're doing the course with Marilyn Harper, and because Esther's not your original name. Esther is the name that you've chosen now. So let's get into why you chose it, how it came about, and the journey of the channeling in a sense.
I started the course with Marilyn Harper, and I started practicing with others, and I was bringing in ascended masters. I was bringing in angelic energy, Saint Germain. It was it got going, and it really wasn't, it was exciting and nerve-wracking in the beginning to trust the energy. We all of us, we were practicing together, and I love that, because no one was better than anybody. We were all in there together, and still are in some ways. We still practice sometimes and get together. Yeah, it is cool. I've met a lot of very good people, and I'm still friends with them and in contact with them. It's been a great experience. It was called the Channelers Academy, is what she calls it. But what happened was I had woke up one morning, and I was very disoriented, and all I could hear was, "This is not my house. This is not my house." I just felt really uneasy, dizzy, laid there for a minute, and I got myself together, and I realized I was in my house. And I heard, "Kathy's gone. This is Esther." And it repeated about 3 or 4 times. And finally I said, "Who is Esther?" And they said, "She's you from the 5th dimension. She's a 5th dimension consciousness. And she's come in by agreement, the agreement you made before you came, that when the work of Kathy or Catherine was done, the learnings or the type of lifestyle that you were living is done, that Esther would come in and start this channeling." And so it's been a very unique process of talking to Esther, which I assume is kind of like your higher self, basically, a higher version of yourself coming in. A consciousness shift is what I call it. I didn't feel like it was some energy from far away or anything. It was something that understood me quite well and fit quite comfortably in my being. So then things really took off, because I got a lot clearer. Messages were coming in. And then it was not that long after that I was trying to develop a website and was trying to describe what I do. And I got a really clear conversation. Wouldn't it be easier if you channeled one big group? Wouldn't that help on your website to be more focused and channel one big group? And I said, "Well, yeah." And they said, "Well, you're going to channel the Esther group." And I said, "Okay." I agreed to it. I could have said no. That's the thing about this, Kevin. When these energies come, this is not something that's forced on you. You have a choice. You have a choice to just keep doing what you're doing in your regular job and just enjoy the energy. You have a choice to, do it any way you want. I never felt forced, but it was something I loved doing, and I was driven to do it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I spent all my free time doing it. And learning about it, studying, watching others, seeing what this was all about. And I'm still very engaged in that. I'm still working on myself. It's a whole lifestyle, and I don't mind that. That was my choice. And so the Esther group is this consciousness from the Pleiades that I channel.
Okay, and that's, you class it as a 5th dimensional group in a sense. How many are in this group, or have you never sort of asked that question, or can you sense there's a number of them? A large number?
Well, I never asked them, but when you said that, I kind of asked in my head, and they're giving me 15.
15, and that includes yourself as well on this side of the veil?
There in the Pleiades, 15. And me. as part of I'm the vessel, I'm the link.
Conduit, yeah.
Conduit,
Mhm.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when you're giving channeled readings to people, then is it mainly that group that's coming through, or are you channeling the spirit guides, or how does it work when a client comes to you for a channel reading? Because you offer channeled readings, mediumship readings, and the akashic readings, which we'll get into. But just sticking with the channeled readings right now, how does that work? So I come to you for a session, and am I going to speak to this Palladian collectiveness, or are they going to be a conduit between me and my group?
Usually, what's been happening lately is that the Esther group I've been channeling them for all the information. Before I meet with the client, I ask to speak to their higher self, to their guides, and I ask them for the information. If that person wants to speak to Saint Germain, that's who they love to talk to. An ascended master, Master Joshua, Jesus, I can channel that for them. I can ask for that energy. The Esther group can step aside for that, but most people enjoy the Esther group. They don't usually question it. I haven't had anybody say, no, I don't want to talk to them. It's been interesting. But yes, I can channel other energies for sure. And it's not that difficult. I just tune into ask for their presence and ask to receive those messages from them. And that's what I get, or a guidance system. Sometimes it's ancestors. I've had people that I have done sessions with where someone ancient will come up. I had a session not that long ago where an ancient shaman dressed in full dress appeared in my head with this person when they were talking to me. And I'm like, I've got a shaman here who says he's with you. And she goes, oh, I know who that is. Right. She heard of, right. I'm like, okay, that's good. All right. Cause she was familiar with that energy. But yeah, and she had a certain amulet that she wore when he was around. Apparently that day she was wearing it or something, but I saw him. So yeah, it's fantastic. There's all kinds of energies. There's all kinds of guides for people. But this Esther group, I think, I'm going to say 10 to 15 of them, because they're saying 10 to 15, not solid 15, depending on when I'm channeling.
So if I was to ask you then, what is the Esther group? How would you quickly explain that?
I would explain them as a fifth dimensional Pleiadian consciousness. Some of them are embodied, some of them are not. That is what they told me. They work together to help the planet shift. They've come together as one consciousness when they deliver these messages to encourage people and to support people and to do whatever they can to make this transition easier.
Now, a lot of people channel the Palladians, and I guess it's. Do you think it's the same collective? Do you think it's connected? It must be connected somehow. I mean, obviously we're using the same word, Palladians, right? But I mean, these aren't physical beings, are they? These are. Well, you tell me actually, rather than me trying to put words in your mouth. How would you explain? How have you understood them to be? I mean, you've mentioned what you've mentioned there, but are these?
They told me that some incarnate in bodies on the planets in some of the star systems there, and that some don't. So I don't completely understand everything, just what they tell me. Some of them are with the Galactic Federation, some are not. But they are in agreement that they seeded the earth, that they feel a responsibility and to help us evolve, because just like they got seeded from another planet, because this is how the universe works, then they went on to see this planet, and there are other types of extraterrestrial beings that came, but they were charged with the responsibility in the beginning, is how they explained it to me. So they kind of see us like parents watching over their children grow up. We're evolving, we're getting ready to really change here in the shift of frequency, and they're here to facilitate that.
So when you give readings to a client, then you're sort of tuning in prior to them coming on. So, for example, they'll book a session with you, and then prior to that session, you're sort of tuning in with your group before they're actually coming in on the day for the reading. Is that the way it happens for you? And is that also the way it happens for the mediumship readings as well?
Any reading I give, any session I have, I tune in first with the person's consciousness. I tune in with their higher self first, and I ask permission. I tell them, of course, the higher self knows this, right? But this is just my process. I ask permission. I tell them I come in love. I tell them what the information is, what the meeting is about. I ask them for any information that they want me to convey to that person, to allow that to come through me when we meet. And sometimes they'll give me information ahead of time. Sometimes I'll write it down. Sometimes it's not very much. It doesn't really come through till we meet. But I get the information from their guidance system, from their higher self. That's who I connect with when I do a session for information. Now, when I get in the session, a lot of times to deliver that message, I will channel the Esther group, because people have more questions. And that way I can really step aside and give them what I feel is channeled information in that moment. Because when I am conscious, I'm cautious that my imagination or my own filter might get in the way. So say I just did an Akashic record reading with someone. I'll just give an analogy, a generalization, because those are private. But say someone had a relationship with someone and it didn't work out, and they want to know why. They want to know, did I have a past relationship or past life with that person? And so I looked into the energy, and I didn't get any information. I just asked the higher self, the guidance system, for that information at the time of the meeting. When we got to the session, I channeled the Esther group, and they gave a beautiful scenario of several lifetimes that these two people had together, and what it was that they came together in this lifetime to work out. So that person got a form of closure. They understood from a different perspective what it was that they were to learn from that. Because many times we go away wounded or hurt or surprised. Wow, I really thought that was going to work out so good. How come all of a sudden it didn't? How come it changed? Or that person said that to me and it hurt my feelings, and we didn't go out anymore after that. Or perhaps it's a loved one, like a family member that you're not getting along with, or there's been some trauma. That's how you go into the Akashic record and you figure out what's been going on with these relationships. I will call it in the past. What is in your field, in your energy, this time, this lifetime, that's been triggered, that's been brought forward for you to sort out, for you to learn. What's the lesson there? That's what they want to know. What am I supposed to learn? That was painful. Why did I, what's the deal with this one person? Why do I keep thinking about them? It could be a boss. Why do I keep thinking about them? Why can't I not? My thoughts just keep going back to this one thing. It could be when they were a teenager. It could be something recent. I can go into the Akashic record and ask. I go into their higher self, their guides, what information is going on there in this lifetime that may be related to something in the past lives with these two people. And like I said, they'll give me little bits, but then when I get into the session, I step aside. I don't want to put in my opinion or my judgment or anything. I really am cautious not to just let the information flow the way it's supposed to. So I feel more comfortable channeling the Esther group at that point, and they give it from their perspective, which is the fifth dimension is more of a 360-degree perspective of how things work. And that's why I find channeling them interesting, because it takes me out of my perspective here. And we all have a different perspective, but it takes us out of that and into a bigger picture of what's going on. So when you find out that perhaps there was several lifetimes or a certain lifetime with that particular boss that you had, or that person from a long time ago, right? Yeah, you get to learn.
A client can book a session with you, as we've said, with a mediumship, a channel reading, or an akashic reading. Now, the akashic reading, I believe you use creative writing, which is a form of channeling with your group, to bring through the reading initially before you have the sit down, whether virtually, probably virtually with the client, and that's worldwide. Obviously, all these readings are, they can be anywhere, to have
Yes.
a reading with yourself. But then obviously on the day of having the reading, you go over what's brought through, but you can then tune back in, if they've got additional questions to be asked, to go back into the akashic reading.
Yeah, there's been two types of requests. There's been people that have asked specifically for an akashic record reading on certain relationships, and there's been people that just want to know in general about their past lives. And in that case, I will channel 4 or 5 lives. I will write down in great detail what is channeled in the days leading up to the appointment, to the session. And I will present that to that person. And I will ask after each life is read if they have any questions, or each experience is read. I'll put it that way instead of life, because it's all one life. We come and go in different forms, but I consider it like your body of work here that you're learning. So in those experiences, they get specific, and they only give you the lifetimes, or they told me, I said, how do you pick these? And they said, we're bringing to you the lifetimes that, or the experiences that have been triggered, or the energies that are coming through in this particular lifetime. So that way you have a frame of reference for these lives. You can see similarities or challenges that you might have, and they bring those forward. And I remember, I don't know these people, so I've had very good results. They've told me, that they were surprised that some of the things that I talked about that they did resonated with them now. So it's been fun. It's been great fun.
So, very briefly then, how did this start for you? I mean, where was that? Do you remember that point where you're like, oh my God, I'm tapping into something called Akashic Records? How did that happen? Very briefly.
Okay. Well, when I was I was already in the channelers school. I was doing channeling of all different types, and there would be questions. And sometimes we would practice going into the Akashic record to see with certain people that I practiced with. And it was very surprising, the information you could get. They did it for me and I did it for them. But my guides started slowly developing this method of channeling records before a session. And when I did, of course, my family, I said, I need volunteers. Let me do your Akashic record. Do you have any questions? Yeah. And they said, yeah, so, but this way of doing it, my guides were really specific. They said, this is the way we want you to do it. And a pattern evolved out of that. And so I just went with it. And then, of course, there's always those people that really aren't interested in a bunch of, past experiences. They are more focused on maybe something that's going on in their life now that's not resolved. And so that's where they want me to go in specifically. And though those are done a little bit differently, I don't always get a whole lot of information before we meet. I just channel the Esther group. They give me a little bit before I meet, but then the rest of it's given during that session. That's really a very personal experience for people.
So when we talk about the Akashic records, I should just mention this as well. We're talking about an energetic vibrational record, a record of everything you think, say, and do, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
What do you think the importance then? I mean, you kind of mentioned it, but what do you think the importance of having such a reading is to a person?
Well, at this point in our evolution, we can't remember. I think in the future, it won't be this way. I believe that intuition will tell us everything we need to know. But at this point in this awakening process, we have been taught by society. And some, actually, there are some religions that believe in past lives, karma, all that. So I will say that that has been a teaching on the earth for a long time. But in many societies, that's been sort of said untrue. So anyway, we can't remember who we are. We can't remember all of our experiences, like my awakening. Why am I here? What was the point of all this? Is it, do we come just to suffer and die? That's your feeling sometimes when you see what's around you. So what the Akashic readings do for a lot of people is they sort of solidify why their journey is what it is they came to do, why they took that job, maybe that, or why they didn't get the one they thought they wanted, a personal relationship that didn't work out, or a difficult relationship with a parent. So it helps you kind of unpack your baggage, so to speak, and move forward with your life.
And find out things like soul purpose, maybe, or your divine purpose. Yeah.
Yes, because once you can let some of that stuff go and there's a real purpose for why you're here, then you open yourself up to listening to what your guides have been trying to tell you, and that letting go, that release, that healing is very spiritual. It's very helpful.
Yeah, and that comes to sort of, as you've said, you mentioned a lot about relationships there, yeah, but it can be like relationships with family as well, as you've kind of touched upon, or maybe the tribe that you're mixing with right now, right? Whatever it may be, right. And manifestation as well. These are, I want to say the word vibrational there, but these aren't. The way I see it in my head sometimes is almost like like a librarian bringing out the books, but it's a little bit different to that.
No, it's more like going into the cloud, the computer cloud, where you've stored all your stuff, and then I just go in and the guides, download me with the information. That's more how I see it. I see it not stored in our brain so much, but in a cloud of information place.
Yes.
Like a computer.
So future, past, and present lives are almost playing out all at once, and we're affected in this sense of maybe if we make changes in this present timeline, maybe that's sort of changing things and rippling through all sorts of directions that we just don't even understand how the strength of this life. I mean, this moment is just so important, isn't it?
Yes, energetically, it's all connected. So if you can heal something in this lifetime, say with a relationship, whether it was a family trauma or something like that, that heals all the way back. That changes the trajectory because it changes the energy of the memory, because it's no longer a negative memory. It becomes a useful memory, a tool. And that's really the way we were meant to learn here. And so in our higher consciousness now, in our evolution, we can sort of tap into that now.
Yeah, and sometimes that healing isn't both parties getting together and, we've got a cuddle session going on and where the sorrows are coming out. That's not even a reality that's able to happen in this moment. But you're talking about on just your level, on just one person's side, your side.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That can still heal that other person. I've heard channels say that when they sometimes someone's able to let go of something from the past, that for some reason they'll hear from that person, or surprisingly out of the blue, and they'll have a nice conversation. The energy will be shifted. And so I just say that doesn't always happen, but for sure, as far as you can go in this lifetime to clear up your energy field, to get your stuff worked out, to investigate that, and to really face it and look at it, I encourage people, because there's a good chance that you'll be coming back to this planet and you won't have to repeat everything, but you kind of pick up where you left off. If there was anything that really didn't get worked out, you may repeat it. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to repeat anything that I went through. So I was very interested in getting it all out in the open, everything resolved as far as I can. I'm still doing it, because when I leave here and then I come back, I want a clear path. I don't want to go through having to go through not knowing and not remembering and all that. I just don't. I want to start, at a really high frequency, a really clear field.
Yes, and maybe you'll get that, right? Or maybe it will be a big test, right? And you'll be like, "What am I doing now?" Right? I get, yeah. It's not, yeah. Who knows, right? Who knows? But I
You
hear
don't
you.
know.
But you've spent a lot of time on yourself, working on yourself in this process leading up to the work that you're doing, and I find that really, my hats off to you for doing that. Because there's some people that come into this work, and they've just not done the work on themselves, neither, right?
Yeah.
You have. There's a big difference, and there's a difference in the quality of the reading. I'm sure there is.
Thank you. Yes, I have done a lot of work on myself and I continue to do that. And that was my guidance system coming in saying, you have to unpack all this. You have to be your best self and you have to be clear when you go to help others. You really have to be in a good place in your life. And that took some work.
Yeah, and I'm sure that we've missed a lot out of your story here, right? I know we have, right? But we've only got so much time in a sense. And I just wanted you to tell your story just to encourage others as well that are just on the edge in a sense and just need someone just to push them over, right? And take a leap of faith, right? Geronimo, and let's start something different.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but even if you're not there yet, all paths lead to where you need to be. I do feel that if you're destined for something, you're going to get there somehow.
That's right.
No matter how much you resist it, which I'm learning all about, trust me. So, okay. For you to channel, it's very well, I say straightforward, but you make it look straightforward in a sense. And I'd like to, bring the Esther group through. I know they're there already, right? Of course they are. They've been coming through in this interview, right? But if you would like just to bring them through, if there's a message to begin with, however it may be,
okay,
that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Yep. So just explain to the audience as well the sort of process that you do.
I close my eyes and I ask to clear and seal the space. I ask for all information to come through clear and concise in a way that everyone listening can understand. So I'm going to close my eyes right now and do that. And it's just a little routine that I do to help me step aside and really let them in. They're always there, like you said, willing, but the human part wants to, kind of get in the way sometimes. So let me just relax here for a moment. Hello, Kevin. Thank you for inviting us to this interview.
It is my pleasure to have you here. Thank you for arranging it.
You're welcome. Is there any questions you would like to ask us today?
How does this collective see the future, in a sense, the timeline of mankind? Has it already seen the potential, the prophecy, in a sense, of where we're heading to?
The human collective made a decision to go forward in its evolution. Once that happened, there was a trajectory of energy that went forward. So we do see that, yes. We do see a positive outcome. We also see that there needed to be an acceleration because of the situation on the earth itself, because of the way that humans have treated the earth, the way that they were making some of their resources to the point where they may run out before they all awakened. So we have come in as a collective and others, and there are many groups, and they have many different names, but we are of one energy in that we all have the same idea of helping humans. This is not an invasion. This is a support system. And all of us have agreed in our own way to support humans, to contact the ones that are open, to awaken them to what is going on around them. And when this happens and when their consciousness lifts, they begin to have solutions to solve their own problems there on the earth with certain resources, ways of doing things that will clean things up, so to speak, amongst themselves and also with the resources available on the earth, so that the timing should be perfect. It should come together in perfect synchronicity. But we had to wait till they were ready. And they had to decide as a collective that they wanted to move forward on this planet. And so when that was decided, because the human collective on a certain level has free will. I know individuals want to say we really don't have free will, or we sort of have free will, but as a collective energy, you had to decide which way you wanted this planet to go. You were not going to be permitted to blow up the planet, the Earth itself, but you could have very certainly taken out the human aspect of the energy on the Earth through war. So there was a shift in consciousness when, well, many other channels have said this, when Russia's opened up, when Germany, the wall in the 80s, the wall came down, Berlin Wall. Yes, when they went bankrupt, we will say it in that way, or ran out of money, or however you want to put it, decided that economically it was better for them to do things a different way. And they have started opening up their country to support the people there and to allow themselves to kind of catch up to the rest of the world who economically had been moving on. And this was a great shift in the consciousness. It allowed for the human collective to move forward in a big way. And we applauded this, but you needed help to progress. And that's why we are here. And we have spoken to leaders in government. We have spoken to different ones in positions of power directly and by different channels, and ambassadors. And they have turned down us working directly with them. So the other option is to come through channels and work directly with the people. We will not wait for the governments to let go of their old energy ways, we'll put it that way, and allow us to help them move forward with all of the wonderful solutions that humans have for health, wellness, for the earth itself, for cleaning up the earth itself. There's so many solutions that are available now. So we are moving on in this direction. And this actually has been spoken by other channels. So this isn't really particularly new information, but we just mention it to remind everyone why we felt the urge to help. We did seed the planet as we were seeded, and it is time to support your evolution. And that's why we were here. We are here. We come in love.
That's a really interesting answer, actually. I know I've not heard that quite said that way before, actually. Fascinating. So with Esther that you're working with now, there's obviously some sort of agreement here. Have you worked with Esther before, or was she part of? Has she had a past life in the Palladius system?
Yes, she did, and there is an aspect of her, as many people have aspects in different realms. This is part of your multi-dimensionality. That is with what we would call the Galactic Federation. She has worked in the Pleiades star system in that capacity as, we will say, it looks different in our world, but a messenger, an ambassador, communicator.
Interesting.
So
Has her sister got a connection to the Pleiades as well, or is it
her sister,
Esther's sister? Has Esther's sister got a connection to the Pleiades as well?
she did. She came through the Arcturian star system, then to the Pleiades, to the Earth. She had some experiences in the Pleiades star system, but most of her experience was Arcturian.
Interesting. Yeah, because obviously she influenced Esther on her journey, or helped her on her journey, shall I say. She mentioned that in the interview. I was just interested. It just came to me just there just to ask that. So thank you for that so far. So what is a Palladian view on a better reality that mankind could have?
Well, just as the Earth, you have synchronicity here. You have seasons, you have dependable planets. The sun rises, the moon comes at night. And so there is an unconditional love from the planet Earth. That is a frequency here. And as humans move forward, some of that social conditioning is going to drop away. And that pureness, that frequency of the Earth, should they choose to accept it, should they allow it, can fill their being. And they will live in a more peaceful life. They will drop the judgment on others. We see this happening as they evolve. This is part of the evolution that has gone on other planets as well, where by working on yourself and by loving yourself and learning that you're not perfect, that you make mistakes, and that, well, we believe everything happens for a reason, for learning, but you have to accept that about yourself. You have to accept the way things are here, and that you can affect your reality by your frequency, by your vibration, by your thoughts, your intentions, your actions. So what we see humans doing is never being a clone of each other, never looking exactly alike. No two people will ever have the same perspective. That's not what this is about. We're not all going to always look the same or have the same culture. There is no right or wrong with anyone's culture or the way they look. It is to learn to accept that and to work for the greater good as a whole. In other words, put into practice those solutions that will allow the Earth's resources to rebound. Put into practice the solutions that will allow yourselves not to fear each other, but to live in peace. So you could still have different areas of the world that practice a certain religion or dress a certain way or listen to certain music that's more popular in one country or another, or have a different language. That's not going to go away. This isn't a homogenizing. This isn't a copy of, you have to do it this way to look a certain way to be human. Humans, the key to humans is that is a variety here that get along. And we go back to nature on this, Kevin. We go back to nature. If you look at trees, they're shaped different. Their root systems look different, but they all act in synchronicity with each other. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
The way, so they're not, nature isn't fighting itself with a tree. It's the way it grows. It doesn't question that. It doesn't argue with another tree that it's not growing correctly, or, the earth is is so magnificent and magical. And there's so many different realms here that you could tap into for that information that right now you just don't see it, but it's coming. Many people are doing it, and we just encourage them to keep going. Ancient tribes did it, and that's coming back, and even in a new perspective. So we just thank the humans for choosing to move forward in this world. We really do. And we are here to offer that support and give them that knowledge and direction that they need during this time.
Thank you for that. So, could you say, or would you say that the sort of what you've just described there as well, that you went through some of the same cycles of evolution in the sense that did you have at one point a planet where there was that diversity and part of the cycle of evolution was coming together in the end?
The Pleiades evolved in a little bit different way. We were allowed to have technology advance very quickly, but our consciousness wasn't advancing. How do we say, we were in a certain frequency, but we were allowed a lot of the technology. It would be almost equal to what we would say, and this is just a generality, technology coming to people in the Dark Ages. Okay, a development where there was science back then and invention in your world. But in our world during those times, we had no how we say, we advanced very quickly. We'll just put it that way. The plan for our planet was to experiment energy in this way. So what happened was, when we had wars and we had conflict, because we did have disagreement in a lower consciousness, as you can see even in your Dark Ages, how, if you look at history, how difficult that time was. Okay, so we had a lot more technology and we used it on each other, and it was a very dark place for some time. We will mention this, and this other channels have confirmed this as well, but we even blew up one of our planets in our star system. That's how intense it got. And at that moment, the shift changed people. It was very difficult time, and some of you here on this planet lived through that, or were blown up, or part of that system that planet that got destroyed, or lost loved ones in that system. It was a very intense time, and we are millions of years ahead of you. We've gone through that, and we've ascended, which means we have full consciousness of everything, of who we are. We don't need a body anymore if we don't want one. There are places we can go, we can embody, but we have a choice. You will eventually get to that place. But yes, it was the evolution of our planet. No two planets evolve exactly the same way. No two planets, we looked human, but the way we were designed inside was slightly different than the humans here. So, the evolution on every planet is a variety. Just like no two people look the same on the Earth, no two planets are the same. There's similarities, and there is evolution according to the biology of that particular planet, in the way some planets have two suns, so to speak. That changes things dramatically. You only have one sun.
When it comes to, we have, things like the economy and the political system. Is part of the evolution to go beyond that? Is that a cycle of evolution in time beyond this understanding that we're going to reach?
Yes. But it's going to take a while for humans to trust each other enough and to evolve enough in a higher consciousness to really trust each other enough to be more independent. There's governments now that are used to full control, and this has been the way. but there is a better future, a better choice that can be made going forward, where people aren't necessarily as polarized, that there's more cooperation in government, but it has to reach a point where people notice the way it is now and aren't happy with that. They're ready for change. Some people are, and some people are really digging in and resisting that. They want to take sides and they want to fight and they want to say one's wrong and one's right. The human consciousness is one collective, and everyone is here participating in a different body, in a different perspective or personality. So all this has to be worked out. The dirt is showing here on the planet with the light that's coming in. A lot of the, we will call energies that were perhaps had different plans for the earth, or perhaps stayed around as long as they could. The frequency's risen to the point where they don't want to be here anymore. You're not playing their game anymore. They're not interested, or they've been asked to leave, and they have. So the energies that remain left, most of them are very cooperative, and even if they're not from this planet that may have an influence, they are allowing things to play out, so to speak. But people hold on to their old belief systems, and they resist themselves change because it has benefited them. It has benefited them in many lifetimes. A lot of your leaders have benefited in many, many lifetimes from their position, and they enjoy that power that they have over others, and they have convinced themselves that this is the way it has to be. They really, some of them are very convinced that this is the way. And we say it is time that people get together in cooperation with each other and let those leaders know that no, it doesn't have to be this way anymore, that solutions are here, and there are people in place as these leaders either are voted out or their governments collapse. There are people that are awakened, that are ready to move into those positions in certain ways all over the world. We're not talking about one country here, to help facilitate the awakening, to help facilitate the solutions that this awakening consciousness is exposing to many of the issues on the planet.
What is a core change that could take place that make a difference? I mean, is it really the change of changing ourselves and, not trying to change the world, which none of us can and none of us will, but it is the change in ourselves, and that it sounds so flimsy to say it ripples to others, but what else can we do?
That's really the core of it, is to shift yourself, because as you do, you open up a pathway for others. You bring in more frequency, higher frequency. You start holding a higher frequency. And when you do that, then others are very easily able to let go of their programming, we will call it, their programming from society, and open up and see a different way. So at the core of it, it is personal transformation. This vessel has been very invested in personal transformation for herself because of that. And we have guided towards that just so she could experience it and know the difference, because it's very hard to go speaking to others if you haven't experienced it yourself. So that is very important for everyone who wants to move forward in their spirituality, that they do it for themselves first, that they really take a hard look at who they are, where they are, and what they are, and when they are, so that they can move forward in neutrality towards many different ways of doing things. And that way, what happens is your intuition starts to guide you. That place from the higher self starts to guide everyone. And so that's why it's so important to let go of all this, because you have a higher wisdom. All humans have a higher wisdom as part of them. And that's what you start to tune into. And it guides you and lets you know where to go, what to do. It makes life much easier and much better. And it's sort of a flow of energy. It allows a flow of positive energy. So that is where we're going with it. People that want to volunteer, show love and compassion to help others, by all means do this. By all means do this. Whatever, yes, whatever your drive is, your passion is, be all in on that. So if it is to help others that are homeless, if it is to help feed the poor, if it is to help children, by all means do this. Do it with compassion and love and understanding. And at the same time, though, be aware that once you shift yourself, once you work on raising your frequency by letting go of some of your own issues, you will be better at what you do. You will draw in more people to help you. You will draw in more information to make what you are doing easier.
Yes, thank you for that. That's so important as well. I mean, so I almost feel like what you're saying is that if we want to change, yes, we want to see the change, we've got to change ourselves, but it's almost like a coming together, a grouping of like-minded people, and that really has that ripple effect on those people that some of the darker energies that are in charge right now of operations that are taking place in this world, and the wars that are going on right now, right? That it's almost like that sort of mass movement is a massive ripple effect eventually to energies like that. But we're not talking overnight, we're not talking decades, we're talking a long time. But when do we start? If we don't start now, when do we start?
Correct. No, now it's already happening. The frequency of the planet itself has shifted. The very ground that you walk on has shifted frequency. So there's nowhere to hide from it. Everyone's affected, but you get to choose your path. You get to choose your path. And the important part is to know that you have a choice, that there are choices out there, and what those are, regardless. Yeah, because you can turn on the news at night and you can see what's going on. And when you turn off your TV, it's really not playing out in your living room, so to speak. You're going to work, you're trying to survive yourself with a job or take care of your family. So people are just tuning in enough sometimes to cause fear, to cause anxiety, to distract them from the fact that if they didn't turn that on all the time, not that you don't want to be aware, but just that you don't want to live in the frequency of anxiety or fear, because humans are a big algorithm. Humans are a big algorithm of energy. And you've been allowed to have a frequency here where you can individualize that. And so there is a large picture, and then it goes on down to the individual. So that algorithm, as you know, if you keep putting in and feeding it things that are anxious or anxiety, that's what it repeats back to you. You can't type something into your computer, a certain word or a specific term, and it will automatically give you every information, all sorts of information on that or a subject. It will give you that subject. It won't give you something really random. It gives you that subject right back. So this is a much, much more sophisticated algorithm on many levels. So the human collective has decided to shift their algorithm to positive instead of that lower frequency that feels heavy. We call it a negative. but it's really a lower frequency that brings in certain types of experiences that are difficult. And you all have learned everything you need from that. It's been quite repetitive. Now's the time to evolve into a higher frequency for different experiences in a different way. And it's a more positive algorithm. If you tune into that, if you allow yourself to do that, it will shift your life into a more positive trajectory, because it's like typing in a subject like joy and love and peace. So that starts to come up in your algorithm. If that's what you're focusing on, if that's what you're thinking about, how much you love your family or how much you love yourself, for all that you've been through and you're still here, thank you. Thank you for everything I have. That gratitude, we will say, that the algorithm of gratitude, of how much you love the earth, its beauty, music, its beauty, all these things are positive. But if you're putting in the algorithm of I don't like those people for what they say, I don't like them the way they look, I don't trust anybody, I don't get along with anyone at my work, they're all crazy. We've all had those moments. Guess what? That algorithm hears crazy. It hears I don't like. It hears, so that's what it starts bringing to you. You see, on a personal level.
So as we evolve spiritually, then there's probably going to be breakthroughs that are going to happen with the political systems, with technology, with medical breakthroughs, and a breakthrough.
It's all there.
A breakthrough.
It's all already
in
there,
war
Kevin.
as well. No war.
No, war is done. There's wars in pockets. There's wars all over this planet that people don't talk about. There's certain ones that are making the news, but people are still not trusting each other. They're still in fear of each other. They're still wanting to control. So that's got a ways to go. It's not completely over, but it can shift quickly. People already know that economically, millions of people fleeing their country and having to be displaced, it's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
Right? Really. And we just say this to humans because we know you understand that. Millions of people all over the world, we see them react sometimes in complete frustration, because they understand that displacing millions of people due to a war and the violence that they experience, the trauma, it's nobody wins. Nobody wins. You already know this. So there's a few bad actors still left. And that's why we say, if you can get the algorithm going strong enough of love, peace, harmony, understanding, it starts with you, but it spreads. That algorithm, remember, there's one human collective united in energy. It's all electrically connected. It's all entrained. Every cell in your body is entrained with every other person on this planet. It is entrained. There is a harmony here that is not seen yet, but it will be revealed. But so as you personally shift your algorithm, your frequency to that of that positivity, you can see how it catches on. And these leaders will have no choice but to leave, to stop. They will be outvoted. They will be overrun. They will be taken down. And this might happen in a big way. It might happen gradually. It depends on where they're at in the world.
Well, listen, I just want to thank you so much for the energy exchange right now, because we've gone well over time, and I appreciate you doing that. I just wanted to demonstrate really just what Esther's able to do, and it's really impressive. So hats off, and just thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us this time. We love each and every one of you. Every one of you is here for a reason. Your frequency was needed here on the planet at this time. So you do have a purpose for being here. Every single person is important. And we are here to support you in your evolution. We love you, and we bid you namaste.
Well, that was give yourself a few minutes there, but that was really impressive, Esther.
Thank you.
Yeah, hats. My hat's blowing off. um, that was very interesting. Very interesting what you had to say. What came through there and what you had to say as well. Now, just remind the audience, while we're at the end here, just remind us very briefly your website and any social media links.
EstherGates.com is my website. And Esther 5D Energy is my YouTube. And I'm just getting that one together. So I post every Monday a quick channel. But if you ever have any questions, contact me by email, esthergates5denergy@gmail.com, and or just through my website, esthergates.com. There's a place in there where you can send me a message, and I would be glad to get back to you. I do offer sessions, hour-long sessions, if anyone's interested.
Excellent. Well, just thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate your time.